the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, has announced that motorists who ply tolled roads across the country will no longer be required to pay tolls immediately after the budget is approved. This was contained in the 2022 budget presentation on the floor of Parliament. Mr. Ofori-Atta said although the toll system has played a crucial role in funding the expansion of Ghana's road infrastructure, it creates unpleasant situation at the toll points.
Our roads are being fixed. It is true that more roads have been fixed and are being fixed over the last 5 years than any relative period in the entire history of our nation. We even want to do a lot more, and this budget will cater for this. That is why for decades, governments after governments imposed and maintained tolls on some public roads to raise funds for road construction and maintenance. This is the situation in many countries. However, over the years, the tolling point and impacted negatively on productivity. The congestion generated at the tolling points, besides creating these inconveniences, also leads to pollution in and around the vicinities. To address these challenges, government has abolished all tolls on public roads and bridges. This takes effect immediately the budget is approved on appropriation. The toll collection personnel will be reassigned. The expected impact on productivity and reduce environmental pollution will more than offset the revenue foregone by removing the tolls.
Government is also proposing a 1.7% phone transaction levy payable by mobile money users per transaction, which is above 100 Ghana cedis. He said this will help government to shore up revenue inflows to fund road projects in the country.
Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 contributed to the acceleration of the digitalization of Africa. Data from the Bank of Ghana confirms a growing trend in online trade. The data showed that between February 2020 and February 2021 alone, Ghana saw an increase of over 120% in the value of digital transactions compared to 44% for the period February 2019 to February 2020. Apart from the convenience online trading offers, the surge has happened globally was primarily due to the increase in the use of digital platforms as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Total value of transactions for 2020 was estimated to be over 500 billion Ghana cedis compared to 78 billion cedis in 2016, just 5 years ago. While total money subscribers and active mobile money users have grown by an average rate of 18% and 16% respectively between 2016 and 2019. Mr. Speaker, it has become clear that there is this enormous potential to increase tax revenue by bringing into the tax bracket transactions that could be best defined as being undertaken in the informal economy. After considerable deliberation, government has decided to place a levy on all electronic transactions to widen the tax net and rope in the informal sector. This shall be known as the Electronic Transaction Levy or e-levy. Mr. Speaker, electronic transactions covering mobile money payments. Mr. Speaker,
honourable members, order.
Electronic mobile money payments, bank transfers, merchant payments, and e-mode remittances will be charged at an applicable rate of 1.75%, which shall be borne by the sender, except inward remittances, which will be borne by the recipient. Mr. Speaker, to safeguard efforts being made to enhance financial inclusion and protect the vulnerable, all transactions that add up to 100 Ghana cedis or less per day, which is approximately 3,000 Ghana cedis per month, will be exempt from this levy.
Now, some of you have been reacting to this on social media. Let's take you to Facebook now for some of your comments on this issue. Many of you talking about this development in Parliament following that presentation made by the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. 1.7% on electronic transactions. Godwin Gako says, robbing Peter to pay Paul, with laughing emojis there. Sharif Ustaz says, Ghana has now turned to, well, Kelly William, I'm sure you want to write. Amos Jeff Gojo says, how can you pay more than what the service providers charge? It's totally because we have phones, but, you know, unable to use that. Okay, Dadzi Alberta says, setting the rich man free and subjecting the poor man to suffer. Prince Godman says, this is madness. No job, no day. Boys, they use betting, they get small money. Even that one self, well, it goes on and on, clearly disagreeing with this. Michael Boy says, hey, God, please have mercy on us and save us from this wicked people. Jeff Tate says, the problem is not about paying the tax, but it's actually what they use it for. That's a problem. Kwabna Aegis says, it means I'll be in my room, but will be paying road tolls each time I transfer cash. Hey, 1.7 per too much. We'll be getting more education on that. Well, government has said it will use it for road infrastructure, but not exactly for road tolls. And ahead of the budget presentation, many communities agitated about the poor nature of their roads, calling on government to fix it. Here's what you can expect in regards to that in the 2022 budget.
We have found through this tax a reliable method of funding our roads. As at the end of September 2021, routine maintenance was carried out on 21,165 kilometers of the trunk road network, 6,265 kilometers of the feeder road network, and 2,937 kilometers of the urban road network. Mr. Speaker, development works progressed steadily on several major projects. The Pokwa interchange under the Accra Urban Transport Project, which involved the construction of a 4-tier interchange, the only one in Africa, construction of 12 kilometers of selected roads, segregated walkways, footbridges, underpasses, and drainage structures was completed and commissioned on July 9, 2021. Major pipeline projects that are expected to take off in 2022 include Accra-Kumasi dualization, Kumasi South and Western Bypass, Kumasi Outer Ring Road, Mamfikoforidia Road, Oyibi Dodua Somenya Akuse Junction Road, Accra Outer Ring Road, Asuchari Junction Volleyball Bridge, Eastern Corridor Road, Solar Wa Road, construction of 5 interchanges in the Greater Kumasi metropolitan area, including Swame, Santase, Airport Runabout, and Ofori Krom. Mr. Speaker, in addition, our public-private partnership program for the financing, construction, and management of road infrastructure has 3 projects at different stages of preparation. Accra-Tema Motorway PPP projects, the financing arrangements are being completed and construction will commence in 2022.
Well, if you had roads in your community mentioned there, good for you. But let's go on to the phone lines now and speak to Ken Ashidbe. He is the CEO of the Telecoms Chamber. Let's get his reaction to the 1.7% e-levy that will be introduced next year if approved by Parliament. Thank you very much, Dr. Ashidbe, for joining us on Joy News Prime. Is this in the right direction, or rather retrogressive as far as the digitization is concerned, and the agenda to have a cashless society?
Thank you very much. If you look at the statement itself that was made, you find out that government itself was talking about being careful about financial inclusion and to protect the vulnerable and all of that. So there's, you can see that they themselves are conscious of the fact that this could impact the financial inclusion agenda that government is set on. So, but the interesting thing is that, and this is one of the things we said several times, there was no engagement before this was announced, so we are hearing it at the same time as everybody is doing. But fortunately, we have up to the 1st of January to be able to engage, because there are several conversations that have to be had in all of this.
You sound very disappointed.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that we need to really discuss this into details to be able to understand it, because we have, our position all the time had been that you don't want to tax the cash that is involved in mobile money. So that we want to be clear that when I go to make a payment and I have the option to either pay the merchant by cash or by mobile money or any digital means, would that mean that it will be discriminated against the digital means that would have been more transparent and more efficient as opposed to cash? So there are several conversations that we need to hold with the government, because definitely, whether we like it or not, at the nascent stage that you have, especially the merchant payments in, taxing it at this particular time might, have a detrimental impact on us. We should bear in mind the learnings from places like Uganda and how it's been done. But I am also comforted that the government said they would engage industry players in discussing the way it's going to be implemented, so that we can look at, being able to ensure that in all of this, we do not sacrifice government's own digitalization agenda that it's pushing, so that there will be some congruence in terms of policy direction. So I would say that we would wait for the engagement with the Ministry of Finance and GRA in terms of how, and even the Bank of Ghana, in terms of how this will be implemented, so that the financial inclusion agenda that government itself says it does not want to impact on, it's safeguarded.
There's a drive to raise revenue domestically, and we are in this post pandemic economic program that government is rolling out. Would it be okay, seeing that the mobile money space has grown substantially? It is a place government would want to go. It's an easy target. Would it be okay for you if government had placed the tax on the profit, for instance?
If government had done what?
Had placed a tax on profits and not necessarily on transactions.
Well, you see, the thing about it is that we definitely need to fund our budgets. And, as you can see, the portion of our budget that is used in paying interest is so high. And definitely the gearing ratio for government itself is so tight, it's so high. And we cannot continue in that particular direction. So we need to be looking at very innovative ways in which we can expand, the tax net. But we need to do it in such a way that we do not, actually harm ourselves. The net effect is positive. And if you look at the statement, there's a lot more conversations that have to be had.
Well, unfortunately, we lost there Dr. Ken Ashidbe, CEO of the Chamber of Telecommunications, but I think the point is well made. Quite disappointed that they weren't engaged extensively before the announcement, but I think they have a window to engage government, the BOG, the relevant stakeholders, to ensure that this is done rightly. They're raising concerns about how it will affect financial inclusion and also encourage the cashless system and digitalization that is being promoted by government. But closely related to the issue of roads is the issue of transport fares and taxes on fuel. The transport unions were expecting government to announce the removal of at least 5 taxes from fuel, but that did not happen. David Boado is the PRO of the Concerned Drivers Association. He joins us on the phone. Mr. Boado, yesterday you were specific on your expectation. I guess you're disappointed now.
We are disappointed in this current government or current administration. We are very, very disappointed in them.
And so what the condition you placed on the suspension of your demonstration was the removal of these taxes, and you were hopeful that today the Finance Minister, Kenneth Ofori-Atta, would make an announcement in that direction. That did not happen. What can we expect from you? What is your next action?
Thank you very much. Today, the IGP meets with the transport organization, and we promised ourselves meeting on Friday. So for now, we will not say anything, but after Friday, we will communicate to the media what and the steps we should take.
And so how are your members reacting to this already? Can you tell us? I mean, there's a coalition. How are they already reacting to this development?
You know, my phone was busy throughout the reading of the budget. All the regional executives are calling me, sending messages. And it's like me is the person that reads the budget. The threatening words and other things that come to me. And I would say all drivers are disappointed. All drivers. I will not say one. All of us, we are all disappointed. So for now, we'll hold our breath till Friday when we meet as coalition. We'll come out. But as to him saying all toll booths will be scrapped off and we will pay through DVLA and other things, I will ask this question. That the foreign transport organizations that comes to Ghana, that doesn't pay tolls, that doesn't pay their DVLA in Ghana, where are we going to take money from them? Because they are using our roads. Where is the money going to come from?
And that's a very important question. Going forward, as we look at the appropriation and the deliberations that will be going on in Parliament, we'll put that question to the authorities. Mr. Babu, I'm grateful that you could join us. That's the PRO of the Concerned Drivers Association. Now, unemployment was also topical, especially in the wake of the thousands of young people who thronged various screening centers by the security agencies. Well, government says it has a plan to create 1 million jobs using 1 billion Ghana cedis.
Speaker, this budget is redefining our development paradigm by focusing on the private sector, particularly on entrepreneurship development. We will build an entrepreneurial nation by aggressively implementing programs that empowers the majority of our young people to employ their God-given talents to take risks and become job creators instead of job seekers. In the pursuit of this objective, we will address the challenges our existing and aspiring entrepreneurs face. These challenges include access to credit and finance, regulatory and tax burdens, lack of skills, as well as mentorship. We will do this whilst intensifying our efforts to support the private sector to expand and create jobs. Mr. Speaker, this understanding of the youth employment challenge, as well as extensive consultations of stakeholders, including youth associations and educational institutions across the country, have led to the development of what we call the Youth Start Initiative. Youth Start Initiative, which proposes to use 1 billion Ghana cedis each year. Proposes to use 1 billion Ghana cedis each year to catalyze an ecosystem to create 1 million jobs, and in partnership with the financial institutions and development partners, raise another 2 billion Ghana cedis. over the 3-year period. In addition, Mr. Speaker, our local banks have agreed to a package that will result in increasing their SME portfolio up to 5 billion Ghana cedis over the next 3 years. This, Mr. Speaker, results in an unprecedented, historic 10 billion cedi commitment in the next 3 years to the private sector and the Youth Start program over the next 3 years.
Let's speak to economist Professor Festus Texan. He's with the University of Ghana Economics Department. Prof Texan, thank you very much for your time here on Joy News Prime. Let's start on that very last point of unemployment. Government wants to create 1 million jobs using 1 billion cedis at least. How feasible or realistic is this?
I think the government, thank you. Good evening to your viewers. I think that the minister clearly spelled out how the Youth Start was going to be fashioned out in terms of skills development training, in terms of startup capital and the mentoring. I mean, it's something that we have felt as a nation to do over a long period of time, and it's important and refreshing to hear government roll this out. Yes, it's feasible. These days, the young men and women who are being churned out of our university are very, very smart with the use of technology. And for those of us who have been in direct contact or have had something to do with training of the youth, you find out that they have a lot of ideas, but at times what they lack has been the capital and then the mentorship that will help them to make their big plans and their ideas come to fruition. So it's important that government is now looking at using that intervention to try to create 1 million jobs. I think 1 million will be a little bit overambitious, but with about 1 billion cedis every year being devoted to that, I think that even if you're able to create 100 to 200,000 jobs, that should be something that will be very recommendable. I have my doubts if that could create 1 million jobs. It will take a lot of training. I mean, talking about 1 million young men and women, it will be very, very ambitious. If you say over the next 5 years, it's going to be 1 million, yes, but 1 million jobs, 1 billion every year, I think that would be ambitious.
Closely related to that is the tax regime, and many businesses have complained about, the high taxes they have to pay, despite what we know government has announced in terms of rebate to some of the industries. What do you make of the tax regime announced by the finance minister in today's presentation?
I was not surprised, really. We need to come to a realization that given the challenges that we have, there are only two alternatives. Either we go on to borrow, which is now becoming extremely difficult, or we have to fund our own development.
Okay.
And funding our own development means that we need to rake in more domestic revenue. And to get our domestic revenue, either we tax more, we widen the tax and become more efficient in collecting taxes so that we fund our own development instead of relying on external parties to help us. There's no doubt that it will take a while for us to go beyond aid or beyond support. But in the interim, we need to collect as much revenue as possible. I was happy about the property rates that he mentioned that the district assemblies were going to. That in itself should be able to sort the district assemblies out so that government's statutory payments to the district assembly common fund will decline, because if you look, statutory payments and interest and compensation alone is taking over 100% of our tax revenue. And a country that doesn't have fiscal space is not a country that will be able to expand its productive capacity. Where are we going to get money for capital expenditure? So it's important that we are able to collect enough revenue.
And that brings
me...
So
there was some initiative that I mentioned. The only tax handle that I was a bit disappointed in was the Levy.
And I was just going to come to that. Why are you disappointed?
Momo transaction, yes. Momo transactions, what do you call it? Merchant payments, and then also bank transfers. I am not privy to what sort of formula is going to be used to do that, but I would expect that even if that policy is going to be pursued, which I find very disappointing, it doesn't become counterproductive to attempts that we are making to have a cashless society, attempts that we are being made at the moment. What the Vice President told us was the central bank coming to develop an ECD to facilitate transactions.
Yes.
Once levies begin to be imposed on these things and the transaction costs become higher, people refuse to make use of them. But the enormous benefits that we hope to gain if we have a cashless society or we have an e-currency to transact business will be much more higher than whatever revenue the government is hoping to make. So until I get information about how that is going to be done, if it does affect financial inclusion, I'll be very, very surprised that this government will want to do something of that sort. Remember, in the past, we imposed what we call financial services tax.
Yes.
That was counterproductive, and some of us complained it was redone. This is not a time for us to go back to those nuisance taxes. So unless I get the information on how that is going to be done, I can understand that a great amount of transactions that are taking place online that go untaxed.
Yeah.
We should try and focus on that. But Momo transactions, bank transfers should not attract any levy. We want a cashless society. We want to encourage Ghanaians to make less use of cash and use online payments and so on and so forth. So this is not a time for us to impose levies that will serve us as a disincentive for people to involve in those transactions.
Very well.
So that was a little bit that I was surprised about.
Very well. Professor Texton, we have to end it here because of time, but I'm grateful that you could join us. The conversation has just started on this, and I'm sure we'll have some more time to look into the details. That's Professor Festus Texton. He's a senior lecturer and economist at the University of Ghana. Christmas will be bitter and painful for Ghanaians. That's according to the Minority Caucus in Parliament, which argues the 2022 budget will impose more hardships on the ordinary Ghanaian. In the view of the NDC, the government failed to spell out concrete plans to reduce the public debt. The projected Ghana's debt would reach about 355 billion cedis by end of this year. Ranking member on the Finance Committee, Kizela Tuforson, observed that the minority will reject the special tax on mobile money as well as the 15% increase on all government fees and charges.
The Bawumia-led economic management team has sought to impose more suffering and pain on the ordinary Ghanaian by punishing them with additional devastating taxes and other fiscal measures in the budget. This has aimed at raising additional tax of 15 billion Ghana cedis. In fact, it will surprise you to note that from the evidence presented to us in the budget statement, this government is increasing tax revenue by 25 billion Ghana cedis in one single year. Among others, this government has done a catastrophic reversal of the populist benchmark values discount despite loud protestations from the sector players, importers and other Ghanaian public. The reversal of the benchmark values discount will immediately result in 25 to 30% increase in the prices of essential imported commodities, which will make life almost impossible to live for millions of Ghanaian households. This Christmas, ladies and gentlemen, will go down as the most bitter and painful for Ghanaians as they will struggle to put food on the table for their families due to draconian fiscal and tax policies that has been introduced by the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government.
So we'll bring you more reactions from the minority on today's budget presentation, but we summarized the 2022 budget for you, brought you 10 things that we think you should know in this 2022 budget put together by the Joy Research Desk. They pulled it from the presentation today. So total revenue, 105 billion, and the total expenditure, 137.5 billion. So clearly you see there's a deficit in there in this projection that has been made today. by the Finance Minister. Budget amount versus the projected outturn. So this for 2021. And so the projection, the budget amount was 72.5 billion. We did, so far as at September 2021, we've done 70.3 billion Ghana cedis. And then when it comes to the expenditure, the projection was 113.8 billion. We've done so far 111.6 billion. This as of September 2021. Now, the public debt stock, again, as of September 2021, is 341.76 billion cedis, and this is 77.5% of our GDP. If you are looking at it as a percentage of our GDP, the economists will tell you that it should always be below 70%, 60, 65. If you cross 70, then you know you are in danger. And this perhaps informed, Fitch's downgrading of our credit ratings from stable to negative. And you had the minorities project that this may actually increase. Now, this is very interesting. In terms of the revenue we generate so far, domestic revenue, this statistics from the Ghana Statistical Service says that the Greater Accra region does 88.83, almost 90% of all the revenue that we raise domestically. 88.3% from the Greater Accra region. The rest of it, even when you put this together, doesn't give you 5%. And so that is in terms of the breakdown of the revenue we are generating. And this was made known in today's budget. The e-levy, we've talked about it. The usage is for entrepreneurship, youth employment, cybersecurity, digital and road infrastructure, public transport as well. And this is how it's going to apply on your mobile transaction and other government, transactions as well. And then the road toll, many of you have been reacting. We'll go to Kumasi shortly. The drivers there have also been reacting to this. The essence of this to reduce congestion, travel time, reduce environmental pollution, and also increase productivity. And the 1 billion jobs, we talked about this to create 1 million jobs. This is how government intends to disburse the monies that it would raise locally with the banks. And also, there was an account of the Obatampa program, how government has expended the money so far. 150 graduates receiving some skill training, and a huge part of that going to the development bank as well. And then this is the 2021 indicators. GDP rate 3.5, 11% for inflation and in October, interest rate 12.46, and then gross international reserves 4.9 months covering import. And so that's it. That's what you should know for today's budget presentation.